Welcome into episode 2 of the Eurostep podcast, brought to you by the Ledge Sports. I'm Zach Hummel, your host, and I'm joined as always by Cole Little. What's going on, Cole?
How's it going, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. We got Game 6 of the finals tomorrow night in Golden State. On this podcast, we're going to talk about our overarching thoughts on the finals thus far. How it's kind of been disappointing. I think any NBA fan that's honest with themselves can say that. We'll get into a little Kevin Love talk, maybe talk about the Warriors bench, what we thought has been the deciding factor in the series. So, Cole, you can just start a little bit on what you want to talk about. What do you think's been the biggest talking point of the finals this far? Because you had the Cavaliers winning in 7 games, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was either I was in between 6 or 7. I think I ended up with 6 just because of the home court. But yeah, it definitely hasn't gone as I thought. I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised that the Warriors are leading the series at this point through 5 games, but I'm just a little shocked at how many blowouts we had, how inconsistent the Cavs have been at times, how LeBron seemed kind of apprehensive about shooting the ball to start the series. I was a little shocked about that. I thought he would really come out guns blazing this entire series. It's just been disappointing because, last year it was disappointing simply because of something that the teams couldn't control, the injuries, the Cavs injuries that kind of took away what was probably going to be a great series. And this year, of course, everyone's healthy prior to Bogut's injury this past game, which we can touch on later. But, entering the series, everyone's healthy. The big three of the Cavs, because, of course, last year Love didn't play at all in the finals. Kyrie Irving only the first game. But, yeah, it's just been strange. They looked awful the first 2 games at Golden State. But strangely enough, just kind of to cap off what has really been a wacky playoffs overall, they have a legitimate chance to win this thing. Of course, the Bogut injury is a big reason why. But, it seems like maybe this past game, maybe the Green, the Draymond Green incident lit a fire under him or something, but it was like a completely different team offensively last game, talking, of course, about Cleveland. So they do have a legitimate chance, believe it or not.
Yeah, it was really surprising last game. Obviously everyone that's watched the finals knows Draymond Green was suspended for Game 5 for that LeBron James incident. I thought LeBron was being a little bit of a bitch in that situation. I mean, he stepped over Draymond Green, and anyone that's played pickup ball, if anyone steps over you, that's almost like someone spitting in your face. It's so demeaning. So I really didn't have a problem with Draymond Green doing that, but it's just his prior exploits in these playoffs where he's kind of let himself get out of hand. And I think it's just one of those things where it's like soccer. You get a yellow card, and then you get another one, you get a red. It was kind of a building factor for Draymond Green why he was suspended, and it definitely brought Cleveland back into the series, because I think if they have Draymond Green in Game 5, I think they definitely close Cleveland out there. I'm not sure on your thoughts on the suspension.
Well, my thoughts all along have been that I wouldn't put it past LeBron. A lot of people underestimate LeBron's intelligence, his, heady play, if you will, and I don't know, maybe a little bit of gamesmanship there. I wouldn't put it past LeBron to say that maybe he baited Draymond a little bit, because remember, he was close to receiving an automatic 1-game suspension anyway, had they given him a certain number of techs or a flagrant one or whatever. Of course, none of that was assessed in game. It was after the fact by the league office, which I don't really like the fact that they did that. But like you said, it was kind of a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. It's not going to be shame on the NBA. They weren't going to let that happen. They weren't going to let him get over on him again after the Steven Adams groin kick. So yeah, they made a stand. But I think overall LeBron, he probably did step over him just to be kind of a brat, since the Warriors had pretty much sealed the deal at that point. But once Draymond responded and started jawing back at him. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past LeBron to say that he kind of exaggerated that whole thing in the hopes of Draymond drawing a tech. But yeah, as far as the suspension as a whole, if that is LeBron, if that is what LeBron was indeed doing, it worked because it definitely gave them new life. I think with Draymond Green in Game 5, of course, at Golden State, I don't think there's any way that Cleveland would have won that game, even with Bogut getting hurt. But yeah, it's given him new life because who knows how that'll affect Green. He may come back and just be a shell of himself. It probably motivated LeBron having to hear some of the stuff he had to hear. Klay Thompson saying he got his feelings hurt and all this stuff. So who knows? I mean, it's amazing because it's almost like karma. If the Cavs do come back in this and win the series, maybe it can be attributed to karma for having all the injuries last year. Because if they do come back and win this series, they'll probably be the worst ever, NBA Finals team in terms of their performance in the NBA Finals to actually win the finals because they were putrid the first 2 games. They squeaked out the third game, and then no, they didn't. Of course. I didn't mean to say that. They took advantage of. Yeah, they took advantage. Yeah, they took advantage of the Warriors not really. The Warriors haven't been great on the road this entire postseason, so they took advantage of that. But then the Warriors responded, obviously, Game 4, the Green LeBron, scuffle at the end. Yeah, it looked like the Cavs were dead in the water at that point, but they were able to turn things around, and they do have a legitimate chance of winning this thing.
Yeah, I think Game 4 we all can agree was the best game of the series. It was the closest, and we had the Draymond Green incident. I'm with you. I think LeBron knew exactly what he was doing. He's almost like an evil genius in the way that he knows Draymond Green's going to act up. He's seen the way he's played in the playoffs, and he's trying to push his buttons. That's something LeBron will always do. He plays into the emotional side of the game, and he'll try to get people riled up, like a Matt Barnes type. Same with Draymond Green.
Yeah.
What did you think? A lot of people have been saying, a lot of conspiracy theorists have been saying that maybe the NBA wouldn't have suspended Draymond Green if it was Game 1 or 2, but they wanted to extend the series.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I saw that Tim Donaghy, of course, the infamous ref who's caught had fixing games, had to admit to that, and of course he came out recently and said that he feels like the NBA suspended him only to extend the series. There have been a lot of conspiracy theories about that in the past, about in all kinds of different sports, about games being called certain ways for viewership purposes or for extending the series. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily put it past them. The NBA does have some conspiracy theories against this name, at least during the Stern era. Who really knows? I mean, I mostly think they suspended him simply because they recognized that they probably made a mistake by not suspending him for the Steven Adams thing, which was far more flagrant. To me, I kind of look at it like a makeup call. Referees in football, basketball, whatever, you always see makeup calls. That's what I kind of look at it as. Even though the LeBron thing wasn't nearly as bad as the Steven Adams, I mean, of course, he had 2 or 3 instances with Steven Adams that were pretty bad. So it was kind of like, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, and the NBA took a stand. That's what I think, at least.
Yeah, I'm fine with the makeup call thing, but I just think suspending someone in the NBA Finals is pretty harsh for a makeup call.
Yeah.
But I'm always on the fence about the conspiracy theorists in the NBA. Like you said, David Stern's out of the league. That's a guy a lot of people thought kind of pulled the strings behind the scenes. I thought with Silver as commissioner, we would thought process. But again, I really don't know if they suspend Draymond Green if it's Game 1 or 2. With it being Game 5 and the Cavaliers on the verge of elimination, I think that definitely played into it a little bit maybe, but not totally.
Yeah, maybe. Of course, we'll never know for sure. But yeah, I do get your point. I mean, I will say this: if something like that had happened in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals with Green and Adams or whoever, I do strongly doubt they would have suspended him to start off the finals. But yeah, since the series, it was 3-1, and yeah, I mean, if it happened in Game 6, let's say of the NBA Finals, I doubt they would have suspended him for Game 7. But it's just kind of like, they wanted to maybe get back at Green, not let him get away with this stuff, because I mean he has been a little ridiculous these entire playoffs. I mean he's had several incidents with several different players, and so they just wanted to make a statement. I mean it's interesting because when they didn't choose to suspend him for the Adams thing, most analysts were applauding them, saying, yeah, that's great because nobody wants a major player suspended in a pivotal playoff game. But then they turned around the next series and suspended him in an even bigger playoff game for something that was far less egregious. So maybe that played into it. They didn't want to feel like Green was getting over on them, and they didn't want to hear all these analysts saying that they gave him preferential treatment because of the situation. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I do think you're right. There are certain games where that could have happened where they wouldn't have suspended him, simply because it would have been kind of self-defeating to the NBA. But yeah, with the Cavs down 3-1, Warriors up 3-1, they probably considered it, it wasn't the worst thing in the world to suspend him for Game 5. Because the worst thing that can happen, of course, is the Warriors lose, but the series is extended and it becomes a lot more interesting at that point.
Yeah, it definitely makes the series more entertaining. There's no doubt about that. I'm also in the camp to think that this will, drive the Warriors towards victory. They seem like a really resilient team, more than the Cavaliers. So I think this Draymond Green suspension will only inspire them in Game 6, especially in Cleveland. I think they're going to go in with their work pails, and they clinched the title on Cleveland's floor last year in Game 6. So I think they would love to do that again after, they feel like they got slighted. I almost think it's a positive for the Warriors that Green got suspended in a weird way, because I think it gives them a little more jump in Game 6, a little more to play for. And we've seen the Cavaliers, if once the Warriors get up by, 10 to 15 points, they seem to start dropping their heads, and they don't run back on defense. LeBron looks frustrated. They're all yelling at Kevin Love. So I think if that follows suit in Game 6, the Warriors get out early, I think we could see another game get out of hand, which I won't want to see, but it's kind of been par for the course in these playoffs so far.
Yeah, it has. If not for the Bogut injury, I would probably 100% agree with you, but I'm kind of on the fence because I wonder what that'll do to him, because he doesn't necessarily get as much credit in the media for all that he does for the team. Of course, they can win going small. I mean, Harrison Barnes has been great these entire playoffs. They got Mo Spates coming off the bench. But, Bogut's injury, pretty severe. Solid day. He'll be out 6 to 8 weeks, obviously done for the finals. So that'll be interesting to see how that hurts the Warriors. Maybe it'll allow Thompson and Love, who have been fairly impotent these finals, to do a lot more down low. Of course, Varejao for the Warriors is going to get more playing time. We've seen him go back and forth, aggravating Love throughout the finals, so that'll be fun to watch. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think the Cavs will go out at home, because I do think they did look finally like they had come together in Game 5. Love wasn't necessarily the best, but what's new? He really hasn't been his best for a while now. But LeBron finally, appeared to be truly comfortable shooting the ball, because I mean, if they are going to come back and win this series, he has to take control and he has to feel comfortable shooting the ball. Because Kyrie Irving, part of the reason they got blown out those first couple of games, the Cavs, is because Kyrie Irving was doing too much, taking too many shots. They weren't spreading the ball around. It's interesting because last year's NBA Finals, of course, they just had LeBron and a bunch of guys, because even Tristan Thompson wasn't, really a big name at that point. He was just making a name for himself. but they look better overall in last year's finals than they have overall in this year's finals. And part of the reason why is, they spread the ball around. LeBron led the way. There wasn't a lot of hero ball. They had guys like Dellavedova and Mozgov who just were scrappy and did whatever, they had to keep the team in it. And like you said, these finals, the Cavs have just kind of given up. And, the Warriors in game 3, even though the Cavs ended up beating them pretty handily, they were down by 20 early, but Golden State made a game of it again. We haven't seen that from the Cavs. We really didn't even see it in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Raptors. It's just like they're not good when they get down. It's like they start panicking. There's just not really a sense of resiliency. But, they did appear with Green out of action last game. They did appear to finally, click. But it'll be interesting to see with Green back in action whether or not, the layoff, all the criticism he received will hurt him or whether he'll come back motivated. I mean, he'll really be the difference in the game, I think.
Yeah, game 6, if the Cavs can't win this game at home, after that big win in game 5, it's a real gut check game for the Cavaliers because I've been down on their resiliency all year. On the other side, like you said, the Warriors, they always make a game out of it, even if the other team's making every shot, which the Cavs were in game 5. I was also really surprised, LeBron, that was his best game stat-wise in the NBA Finals. And I just think with his skill set, he should be putting up 40, 10, and 5 a night. I don't think he should let anyone stop him in that right. I know, like you said, he hasn't been shooting the ball great, and he's almost been scared to shoot it. But I think he needs to keep attacking the rim, getting to the foul line, because that's almost as good as taking those mid-range jump shots. About the Bogut injury, Golden State's more of the team that can eat those kind of injuries because they have so much depth. Like you said, they can put Varejao, they can put Spates in there, play a smaller lineup with Green at the 5. If Tristan Thompson, let's say, got injured for the Cavs, I think it would be a way bigger hit because he's been a beast on the board so far. And that kind of feeds into our next topic, Kevin Love. This guy was supposed to be the third superstar along with Kyrie and LeBron. They ended up trading Andrew Wiggins for, who looks like he's going to be a stud in this league.
Right.
He's been a real minus in these NBA playoffs, even though he was a plus 13 last game in game 5 with only 2 points in 33 minutes. I just don't understand how Kevin Love can play 33 minutes and only put 2 points on the board. He's really been an enigma. I really can't figure out. I don't even think he can figure out where he fits on this team, and it's been a real problem the whole season. We're seeing it now more in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, it's definitely strange. It's weird. He's actually almost gotten worse, throughout his tenure with the Cavs, because he was pretty good, during the middle point of last season, and then towards the end, he really appeared to be back to elite form. Of course, it took him a little bit to assimilate, but the playoff injury, maybe that took him out of his groove. But this whole year, there have been questions about whether or not he gelled. These entire playoffs, with maybe the exception of the first round when the Cavs dominated, he just hasn't exactly appeared to fit. In these finals, especially, he's been really disappointing. I do think maybe it hurt him as far as his reputation that he played on those awful T-Wolves teams when he did basically the bulk of the scoring. Of course, we saw KG do that for several years, but, that wasn't a fluke. He proved that with his tenure in Boston. But maybe that's what, is causing so much criticism against Love. I mean, I do think he gets maybe a little too much criticism because I think maybe the Cavs as a whole aren't necessarily clicking. It's not just him. They displayed throughout these finals. They've gone through long stretches where they don't click offensively. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, he definitely appears to be overrated. As far as there were even questions in Minnesota on whether or not he was able to, work with other star players around him, not necessarily star players, but promising players such as Rubio. And he hasn't really appeared to gel in big games, in big playoff games at least, with this group. And I'm not really sure how much LeBron likes him. I'm not sure if they really get along. I know there are always some rumors and some different things, such as Love not being in LeBron's Instagram photos and Twitter, little snarky comments and all that garbage. So I'm not sure if that has something to do with it. I mean, of course, LeBron, basically runs things behind the scenes in Cleveland. That's his team. He got Vlad out of there. So maybe part of the reason that Love isn't really gelling is because his relationship with LeBron is not great. Look, like an elite player. Varejão's really gotten in his head throughout these playoffs. Thompson has been great on the boards. Thompson has basically outplayed Love down low. And it's just strange. I mean, like you said, they traded Wiggins for Love. I've seen some things in NBA media, some analysts questioning whether or not, in retrospect, that was a smart trade, whether or not they would have been better off keeping Wiggins, especially with the way that Tristan Thompson has come up since then. Of course, hindsight is 2020. But, yeah, it's strange. I don't know. I mean, I wonder what Love's future is. I saw something today, some rumors that, not necessarily some rumors, but some speculation that, the Knicks should look to trade Carmelo for Love, and this is a straight up deal. So we may hear more about that in the future. But it is interesting. I mean, he still has, one, possibly two more games to change people's thoughts on him. But, Love has definitely come up small in these finals when you would expect him to come up big since he didn't get to play in them last year.
Yeah, I just think the Cavs are playing him out of position. They're having him play in the corner, shooting threes, which is kind of a developing part of his game. To me, he's more of an interior presence. I think he does his best work in the paint, hitting those Tim Duncan-like jump shots off the backboard, those little righty hook shots that he made famous in Minnesota. He's always been a pretty good rebounder. I still think he is a defensive rebounder. But my developing thought on Kevin Love is I kind of love how he's been terrible in the NBA Finals so far. I think it's bringing his value down, trade value. And I would actually love the Celtics to go get him. I wouldn't trade our third pick for him because I think that might even be too steep because I'd rather have a young player than Kevin Love. But if we can package maybe our 16th pick with a Jared Sullinger type or maybe a Jay Crowder, Kevin Love could come here and be the best player on our team right now. And him and Isaiah, pick and pop, post up, cut off the post up. And when you have a coach like Brad Stevens, who I think is one of the best in the league, I think he could utilize Love better than Tyronn Lue is doing in Cleveland. So I actually think that him being bad in these finals are actually helping teams like the Celtics maybe acquire him in the offseason. Because like you said, there's been too much between him and LeBron. Last game, Game 5, we saw him jawing at Love early on in the game, and it continued. And I just think he's done from Cleveland, whether it's him or the team that breaks that bond first. We'll have to see. But I don't see him staying past this year in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, really the proof was arguably the Cavs' best game this entire series was the Game 3 victory. And, of course, Kevin Love was out with the concussion issues. So, it's just the writing on the wall. The writing's on the wall that, he's not going to be around in Cleveland for too much longer because, I just really don't think he gels with that offense at all. Like you said, he gets used the wrong way a lot of times. Doesn't really get to play to his strengths that he showed in Minnesota. And, yeah, but it all comes down to LeBron. I don't think LeBron's really too keen on him. I don't really think LeBron, there were questions of whether or not their relationship would prevent Kevin Love from re-signing this past offseason. And I'm not really sure what LeBron wanted. Of course, LeBron himself waited to sign his new deal to maybe give Love time to sign. But I don't know. It's like the whole time they haven't gotten along. I know maybe they've wanted to make it work, but it's just, LeBron, it's just like he either won't let Love, carry his fair share of the weight. And, he's just Blatt used him maybe a little better than Lue has. but he really hasn't been used correctly all season long. That's part of why he's like I say, he's appeared to have gotten worse throughout his tenure with the Cavs, because it's like slowly but surely it's been forgotten, how beastly he can be down low.
Yeah, he's definitely on the downturn, which I think will just increase the suitors for him, because NBA teams love to buy low on guys, and then they think their organization can build them back up to what they used to be. He's probably been the worst player in these finals, but I was curious to see who is your MVP so far. I know we don't know who's going to win the finals, so it's kind of tough to determine. But I was just wondering who you think has been the best player on the floor in the finals so far.
It's interesting. I think Curry is probably the favorite, not by a whole lot though, but probably the favorite at this point to win because of course, his scoring and shooting. Iguodala's been great again. Of course, he won it last year. He's been solid on both sides of the ball. Harrison Barnes has really been the X factor, in my opinion. I know he's not necessarily in the MVP conversation. Sean Livingston's been great too, but Curry, he's done well. I mean, personally, I think we keep hearing these injury talks about his knee and whether or not he'll have shoulder surgery, and of course, he opted out of participating in the Olympics. So I do think he's probably playing through some more pain than we maybe realize. I do think he's setting himself up to win the Finals MVP. Of course, he didn't get it last year, but his scoring production's been pretty solid throughout these finals. But yeah, the Cavs. As for the Cavs, LeBron is clearly been best all around. But really, it's funny, the X factor for them, of all people, and maybe this is telling of why they've struggled so much. The X factor for them has been Richard Jefferson, who I'm pretty sure is like 52 years old.
Yeah.
Through like the first 2 or 3 games, other than LeBron, of course, he was really the best player as far as overall, both sides of the ball. But yeah, Kyrie has gotten better throughout the series, but they haven't really gotten the production they got in last year's finals from J.R. Smith. Definitely not from Dellavedova. Shumpert's been pretty great defensively, but offensively, I'd like to see more from him. They just really don't appear to be in sync. And I mean, maybe the fact that Tyronn Lue is so inexperienced as a head coach, maybe that has to do with it. But yeah, other than LeBron, who's clearly been the MVP for the Cavs in these finals, there really hasn't been a player that's been consistently productive. And the Warriors have had 3, 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, for me, it's been Curry. I know that's the popular pick, but he really is the best player on the floor at times. I've also been surprised by Klay Thompson. I haven't watched a lot of Warriors basketball during the season. I've really been impressed with his shooting, and also the way he's not just a spot-up shooter. He can go off the dribble and attack the rim, which has been a part of the Warriors' offense the whole season. As you mentioned, Sean Livingston's been a killer off their bench, leading that bench unit for them. Him and Barbosa have won 2 or 3 games for the Warriors, just outscoring the Cavs bench by so much. His mid-range jump shot's a lost art. I love watching him play because when he first came into the league, people thought he was going to be a generational player, but he had those injury problems, and now we're really seeing at the end of his career the best of Sean Livingston. On the Cleveland side of things, as you mentioned, I would say LeBron, just because what he does every night, not just scoring, but on the glass and, dishing out assists. And even last game, he had some chase down blocks, which we haven't seen from LeBron ever since his first stint in Cleveland, which I mentioned on the blog. And Kyrie Irving, he was downright terrible on defense in the first couple of games. I think whoever he was guarding was just going off. He's kind of negated that in the last couple of games by scoring in his own right. He had 41 game 5, 34 game 4. So as long as he can match whoever he's guarding on the floor, that'll be good for the Cavs. Tristan Thompson has also been a big key the last couple of games, just on the rebounding front. because the Warriors earlier in the series were kind of out hustling the Cavs to every offensive rebound, and that was a big sticking point for me. But we have Game 6 coming up tomorrow night, so I'm curious on your thoughts on that game. How do you think that will go? Who do you have winning?
I think the Cavs will squeak it out. I think LeBron we'll see peak elite LeBron tomorrow night. I think Kyrie Irving will continue his upward swing. I do think Love will step it up offensively. I'm not sure necessarily how consistent he'll be throughout the game with his contributions, but I think tomorrow night will be a shooting affair, a scoring affair, really high scoring. I think the Cavs will squeak it out and we'll go back to Game 7 in Oakland. As far as Draymond Green, of course, after his one-game layoff, I don't really know what to expect. That's kind of the anomalous thing with all of this. He's really the difference maker because I'm not sure if he'll be kind of gun shy or rusty or just kind of down on himself, or if he'll just come out fired up, playing beyond belief. Because he's shown throughout this season that he can really take over games, just like Curry can. So it'll be interesting. I do think LeBron will be motivated to try to show up Draymond Green, every chance he gets. But yeah, I think the Cavs will pull it out and we'll go to the 7th game.
Yeah, I had the Warriors in 6, so I'm going to stick with the Warriors closing it out in Cleveland, which I think if they win this Game 6, that's a huge win for them. Not just this year, but I think for their legacy. Anytime you can close an NBA Finals on the road, that's a big thing to put in your hat at the end of the day. And that would give them 2 championships in 2 straight years, clinching on opponent's floor. That adds to the lore of the Warriors, who, are quietly becoming, unless their team breaks up in some weird, unforeseen way, one of the best runs in NBA history so far. They're not – I know the East is terrible. People think Cleveland would get out of the West. But Golden State's really been, the pillar of success in the NBA these last couple of years, and I think they close it out in Cleveland. But I'm curious, you think Cavs win Game 6? We're not going to have another podcast for 2 weeks, so I'm wondering, you got to make your pick for Game 7 at Oracle. Who do you got in that one? You sticking with the Cavs, or you switching your pick?
No. I hate to do this because I'm basically betraying myself, but based on what I've seen, I would be shocked even without Bogut if they won Game 7 at Oracle. If the Thunder weren't able to do it, and they clearly had a better game plan for beating the Warriors than the Cavs have, then I don't think the Cavs will be able to do it. I just don't see it because, with that crowd and with just the shooting capabilities, I can't imagine the Warriors dropping Game 7 at home. But I just hope these last 2 games, if it does go to, I just hope they're good because, this finals has been pretty disappointing. I expected it to be a lot better. I was a little disappointed with the Warriors too in Game 3. I thought maybe they were, they had learned their lesson or responded or awakened or whatever you want to say from the near miss against the Thunder. But, even they look pretty terrible in Game 3. It's just been weird because it's just been, at times it's looked like, November basketball instead of June basketball. And as far as what you said about the Warriors, yeah, of course they have been hands down the best team, and I hope history, like you said, remembers them for all the success they've had in 2 consecutive years, specifically, with the array of really well-rounded, great players they have, because it's not just Curry. They have several great, well-rounded players. But I'm just scared for their sake that the, going down 3-1 against the Thunder, not showing up in a couple of these games against the Cavs. I don't necessarily think that this season, even though, if they do win it all, they'll have that to go with their name. They'll have the best regular season record to go with their name. I still don't necessarily think it'll be remembered as they'll be remembered as being the best team ever because of that Thunder going down 3-1 to the Thunder. But it'll be interesting to see, how history will remember this team. I mean, I do think they'll end up winning the series, whether it's in 6 or 7. I think they've shown throughout the year and throughout the playoffs that they're the best team. Can't forget that Curry was battling the injuries he was battling against the Thunder. Didn't really get up to above 90% until those final 2 games. But it'll just be interesting to see how they'll remember it. It'll be interesting to see how this finals is remembered. Because, I mean, like I said, if the Cavs somehow manage to come back and win this thing, not only will it be remarkable that they were able to come back and win a finals down 3-1, but it'll just be remarkable because they looked so bad those first 2 games. They didn't look really good very good at all in game 4 either, at least defensively. So it's amazing, the twists and turns we've had throughout these playoffs, and it's culminated with this. A strange NBA Finals, but hopefully these last 2 games will be winners.
Yeah. The basketball fan in me almost hopes the Cleveland Cavaliers win in Game 6 just so we can have that epic, Game 7, LeBron on the road. Let's see what he's really made of because, to be honest, he hasn't had that game in his career. Game 7, NBA Finals on the road against maybe one of the better teams in the last, 6 to 7 years. What can you do? Are you really the superstar everyone thinks you are, or will you cower? Which has kind of been his reputation in certain spots. So, that will be utterly fascinating for any NBA fans. I also want to mention, I just think these playoffs have been too long. I just think the first round series don't need to be best of 7. A lot of the times we know who the better team is, especially in the Eastern Conference. I think best of 5 would be a better format. Maybe we'd see less blowouts because we just have less games, and then the teams would be fresher, less injuries, all that good stuff. So I just think that's a note the NBA should maybe take up. So 5-game series in the first round. And then after that, you can go 7 the rest of the way. But I think in the first round, there's teams barely sneaking in that don't even deserve to sniff the jock of the teams they're playing. So, so, these last 2 games, if they end up being blowouts either way, I think we'll be really disappointed about these NBA Finals, a real forgetful NBA Finals. But as you said, I hope people, don't really overlook the Warriors because the way these guys are playing, I think Harrison Barnes is gone after this season. He's a free agent. I don't think the Warriors are going to re-sign him. But the Warriors could bring in some other free agents. So this is the last time I think they're going to have that group together that has played so well these last 2 years. So let's see if they can end it on a title. I think on the next podcast, we're going to talk, obviously, about what happened in the NBA Finals, whether the Cavs come back to win or the Warriors kind of cement their legacy. We'll get into some NBA draft talk, obviously, with that coming up in a couple weeks. And then we'll dip into some free agency and some trade talks. Like you mentioned earlier, Carmelo's name's been floated around, Kevin Love, Jimmy Butler, Derrick Rose now. So, I think this year more than a lot of others, there's going to be a lot of superstars moving in the offseason. I can't wait. That's one of my favorite parts of sports is NBA free agency because, teams will try to wheel trades on draft night, and it's really, you can't keep your eye off the waiver wire to see like what is going down in the NBA.
Yeah, there's definitely some potential for several big-name stars to be traded this offseason. Like you said, Carmelo, his name's basically always going to come up until the Knicks are at least good again, which might not be for a very long time. But, Kevin Love, there are already talks in Minnesota. Now Thibodeau's in Minnesota, him wanting to reunite with Jimmy Butler, so they might be looking to trade for him. Of course, where Durant will sign will be interesting. Harrison Barnes, like you said, what will the Warriors look like last year? Will they be even better? Will they be the same? Will they be a little worse? What will happen in San Antonio? Of course, there are several suitors for Durant. So that's going to be the biggest piece. And what'll happen with Cleveland? A lot of question marks. And like you said, we've got the draft coming up. We've got some big name prospects. Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram. So that'll be curious to see what happens. Last year's draft, was a bit of a dud. I think this year we have some bigger names, some more interesting names. Of course, your Celtics have so many picks. Um, it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do with that. Yeah, I mean, draft night might be wild. We might have several trades, but I know that July, free agency, as well as any trades that might happen, it's definitely going to be interesting. But I'm going to enjoy these finals while they last. Hopefully, they won't disappoint in Game 6. And if there is a Game 7, hopefully that'll be exciting too. But yeah, definitely a lot to look forward to this offseason.
Yeah, I have it on good merit from some sources that the Celtics will trade this third pick. I don't know if that will come to fruition. I hope my sources are well sourced themselves so they don't make me look like an idiot. But I have it on good merit that the Celtics will end up trading this pick, which I wouldn't hate because I'm not in love with a lot of the players after Simmons and Ingram. But we'll talk about that in the next podcast. Thanks everyone for listening, and watch the NBA Finals tomorrow. We'll all be tuned in to see how it ends.